Uh, so yeah, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So this was a pretty long dissection of the. So this is Afrocensus, Afrocensus. So it's the German version of the census. It's a combination of the German demographics relating to African, Afro-ethnic, and like Black population, and so it was a 163-page paper. But from that, since we can't really go through all of the pages, we'll focus primarily on the general statistics and the future course of action that the Afrocensus promotes or prefers to happen, right? So the introduction, just general introduction about the census. Over 1 million people of African origin live in Germany, and 71% are German born. So they're German citizens. And yeah, I think it's somewhat of an important statement. So they're not, most of them are Germans. 54% of the respondents are between 20 and 39. And then there's an equal spread as we go below 20. And like it's a bell curve as we go below 20 and above 40. So paying attention to the fact that the majority of those people are either young adults or just adults. And there's a higher population of individuals less than 20 than above 40. So we can see that there's a big population of young African Black Germans. Which again reflects on the type of answers this census would produce. Because different ages a lot of times experience different types of racism because they're in different environments. People of African origin that migrated to Germany are generally very young. So, which is also pretty important. That means if you look at statistics in schools and universities, you would see a high uptick of racism, discrimination that they experience, that they talk about. So these are some of the statistics that I thought were pretty important to mention. The criminalization, exoticization, and sexualization in regards to the African Black demographic. So, and these are the responses from roughly close to 5,000 responses. So that's a pretty good population size. Over 90% of the surveyed state that their hair is being grabbed without being asked. 80% state that they receive sexual comments on dating apps about appearance or their origin. 56% asked about if they sell drugs. 56% state that they're being checked by the police for no reason. 90% said that it will not be believed when they address racism. If they express criticism, they're accused of being angry. 86% of them question their experience, which states that the problem in where even if they try to point out things that they don't prefer to happen, such as, I don't know, please don't ask me that I'm selling drugs, or the incentives that some of the police officers have, or being grabbed, is a lot of the times they're not perceived to be honest or serious, as a lot of them see, a lot of people perceive their criticism as anger. And so there's a lot of doubt when it comes to what they say. 50% of cis men say that they have been discriminated against in this area, and cis women. So there's a higher percent of cis women that are discriminated. And this also relates to, if you take this further and apply the presence of LGBT factor into men and females, that number again rises up. So not only is it the race discrimination, but when you apply the sexuality aspect, the gender aspect of it, that only amplifies it. Even though you would think that Germany is somewhat liberal, I mean, I would from living there, you would perceive it as sound liberal relative to other European countries, but still, if you're LGBT, the chances of being discriminated go up. 81.6% of respondents with disabilities relative to 62% without impairment state that they were discriminated against in contact with government office and authority. So presence of disabilities is considered negative and discriminated. And as we go further, you'll see some other somewhat peculiar aspects that you wouldn't really think about that actually have a significant contribution to how much someone gets discriminated. Okay. So these are 15 most common characteristic combinations experienced by responders. So this is a combination of discrimination that come along with one another. So, for example, when for 433 members, if there was some racist ethnic background reason to discriminate someone, it always, a lot of the times it came with skin color, so mentioning that they're Black. And for example, if 200 members stated that, then it was associated with their, whether they were male or female, and female were discriminated more often. So you can see that these aspects are often interconnected. So ethnic background, skin color, sex, their name, if their name sounded African, the hair. So as we know that we said that 90% stated that their hair was grabbed throughout their lifetime without like a certain reason or like a direct ask. Nobody like without asking. So work life. So like their occupation and their social status, social background, meaning that people, when they discriminate against them, they assume that they would be of a lower social status, social background, even though most of the responders are German and they grew up in Germany. 71% grew up in Germany. So it's a pretty weird way. Even though they're Germans, they're still discriminated in their social status, even though they grew up in the same country. And as you know, Germany is governmentally, it's a social democracy in which, different from the US, where we're more capitalistic, in a way that if you go to most of the cities in Germany you go to, you'll get a pretty good education. You will have grocery stores, a police station, a fire station. So the structure of the social democracy with insane taxes of like 45% income tax allows cities throughout the country to be sophisticated. So again, discriminating someone who was born there on their social status is pretty ignorant. I mean, it's racist, but it's on top of that, it's pretty ignorant. Political focus on the empowerment of Black Africans. So this is like a statement that was consistently mentioned, that there needs to be more political focus rather than just environmental and just community focus. There needs to be some political focus on this, which doesn't exist a lot. So this is statistics on fear of discrimination in the past 2 years. So out of like, I believe there are 4,500 respondents. Actually, no, my bad. 9,000. So 45%. So 45.7%. So you can see this is basically police, security, public and leisure time, justice. So these are the aspects of life events that they experienced in which they feared being discriminated. So on the top, the police, we can notice that security, in public, police, and justice, authorities, there's around 20% fear. So 1 in 5. Another part is the private life and the housing market, pretty present. Online and dating apps that existed too. Groceries, healthcare, work life, banks, art, culture, and education. So these are the most common fears of discrimination in Germany. Okay, so this is pretty interesting in a way that frequency of discrimination in the work life. So when it comes to work specific, not outside of work, but specifically during work life and how people get discriminated during work. So interestingly enough, people's racism is pretty interesting in a way that if you have both of your parents Black or of African Afro-ethnic background, you are more likely to be discriminated. Just because I guess the logic behind this is if you have more African parents, you're more African, so you should get more discriminated. That's the only logic I can think of why this exists. But this is a pretty significant difference. It's like 61, 62% to close to the 66, 67%. There's a number of parents does have a factor. Disorder and impairments. Even though most of the respondents did not, so you can see on the bottom, the bigger the circle is, the higher the response rate, and the privileged, not privileged, is the way they described in a way that if it's gray, that means it's considered relatively beneficial, privileged. So privileged in a way that you're discriminated less. It's not really a privilege if you're still discriminated, but in this sense, relative privilege. So if you have one African parent, relative to discrimination, you would be considered privileged because you will be statistically discriminated less. So disorder impairments, if you had an impairment, you would be significantly more likely to be discriminated based on your impairment as well as your ethnic background. So education level, interestingly, if you had a low education level, you were discriminated less. But if you had a high education level, you were discriminated more, implying that the factor that, if we go back, you notice that the fear education that exists here, right? And social background, I think it kind of connects to this because people, I think the reason why the higher education level gets more discrimination is because people start to question your education level. So if you say, for example, you finished, so the way, just as a background information about Germany usually works, the high school, the primary school works in a way that at a certain age, I believe it's like grade 6 or 7, you are segregated into 3 branches where you go. So they have specific names, but to put it into basic terms, you go into low level school, so bad grade school, middle grade school, and if you have good grades, you go into smart school. So you're just segregated based on your ability to perform during exams. You take a standardized exam, and then they just segregate you on where you are, right? It's a bit of a messed up system, but it works in some ways. It doesn't work in other ways because you get segregated at a relatively young age, and then you have to work your way up if you want to go to the smart people school. Otherwise, and the negatives of being in let's just call it a dumb people school. There's a dumb people school, there's a middle people school, and there's smart people school. If you finish the dumb people school, the only thing you can really do is sweep the streets, work as a cashier, just do extremely basic stuff. And if you finish the dumb people school, it's called the main school. It's called Hauptschule. And the middle one is called Realschule, which is real school. And the last one, the best one, is called Gymnasium. So if you finish the lowest school, your work life really is just so basic. You can't really, it's really bad. If you finish the middle school, you can get a decent job, as well as you can take a standardized exam and go into the smart people school. So you have some options. And gymnasium, usually people from gymnasium either get a decent job or go into the university. So that's how it works. So yeah, high education, people were discriminated less because of doubt. German citizenship. If you were German, which 71% of the respondents were, you were discriminated more, which is, again, interesting. If you're a refugee or an immigrant, again, specifically if a refugee and immigrant was something that people knew about you and they knew that you migrated into Germany, you were discriminated more, which is interesting. These two, that means if you're German, you're more discriminated. But if you're a refugee and that's like a factor of your personality that people know about, you're again discriminated. So the dilemma is you can't really be, it's really difficult to play with this because you're discriminated either way. Identity, again, if you're a male, you're discriminated a bit less relatively. If you're a woman, you're discriminated more. And this is trans. If you're trans, pretty bad. You discriminate more, significantly more. LGBT, the same thing. If you're LGBT, significantly more discriminated. Religion. So one of the things in Germany that is interesting is that in Germany, there's a really high population of Muslims in a way that they mainly come from the former Yugoslavia. So from Montenegro, Bosnia, Croatia, and Serbia. They also come from Albania, Turkey. So I from personally living there, you can really notice that the inflow of a lot of Muslim people has a negative connotation towards some of the conventional Germans. I think it's somewhat similar to the American Republican ideologies, where if you follow politics in a way, you would know that like keep like the ideas of Trump, for example, like keep the Mexicans away, keep the Muslims away, like the border wall, stuff like that. That kind of ideologies does exist in Germany as well in regards to Muslims, and refugees, which are usually Muslims. Like Syrian refugees are all Muslim, and because of there's a large Muslim inflow, there's a lot of Muslim discrimination. Net income. So if you do make higher income, you are discriminated less, and if you make low income, you discriminate more. And this is probably related to the fact that if you do make higher income, you would be surrounded by people that are a little bit more educated than the rest, and that you're in higher classes. So that's probably the reason why. But again, we can only assume why some things are the way they are. So these are the potential actions pointed out by the paper that can be pursued. This is there's a lot of wording because I try to summarize as best I can. So first targeting is specific addressing of anti-Black racism in regards from the aspects of politics and administration. So ASR means in German anti-Schwarz racism, Rassismus, which means anti-Black racism mission. So the Bundestag, which is a governmental part that plays a role in lawmaking, the Bundestag must convene an expert commission on anti-Black racism to develop anti-Black racism definition that will be incorporated into administrative action, executive regulation, and federal programs. So more of presence of anti-Black racism integrated into the law. So the action plan is at the federal and state levels to combat racism based on the second edition of the National Action Plan and UN Disability Rights Commission. So there are UN conventions and action plans that are made every other year, I believe, or every year, I'm not sure exactly, but to integrate the presence of racism into those action plans and discussions in the UN and the German government itself. UN is the United Nations. Anti-Black racism in German resembles remembrance policy, so appropriate reinstitution and reparations directly with the representatives of the societies of origin and descendants of the communities affected by German genocides and colonial violence, example, Black victims of Nazism. So something, if you want to compare it to something that Germany already does, you can compare it to the Jewish reparations that they're currently doing. So currently, if you are Jewish in Germany, you do get a lot of benefits. So when it comes to housing, when it comes to groceries, if you can demonstrate through documentation that you are Jewish, you do get significant social support, and this kind of implies that we should not exclude Black victims of Nazism because there were a lot of them. I'm not sure about the number. I didn't look. I forgot to look up the number, but there are people of Black victims which still are discriminated. But because I guess it's not the reason why it is not is not the case right now is because in Germany, from just the basic public sentiment, that's not really a big issue in Germany. They focus on things kind of that are in their face, which used to be the Jewish like genocide, and that's why they did something about it. But I guess until this becomes more public, it's going to take some time. And mainstreaming in all social and political projects, the effects on the living situation and interests of Black, African, and Afro-diasporic people must be systematically taken into account. And counseling, so counseling centers for the victims must be established nationwide. Yep. So next, empowerment as basic principle. So all of the things that I'm currently mentioning are factors that are in the like 160 pages there to like action plans. This is what we're doing. So here for empowerment aspect, there are two branches, political and when it comes to communities. So financial support and institutionalization. So long-term funding instruments such as May Aim Fund be expanded. So this is financial support for the Black communities. Ensure the ability to create frameworks, conditions in which people can strengthen themselves, choose their priorities, and content of their work. So content of their work meaning that they have more options into what they're doing during their jobs and more options. So, and that can be done through resources provided to the Black communities, individuals, and so on. Institutionalization, the community empowerment of Black African diasporic people must be institutionalized in the various ways. Yep. So again, example, community centers. And this can be only done through political reforms of the, for example, Bundestag, right? So, so when it comes to communities, the things that they mentioned, is the diversity, allies, and intersectional discrimination. So, so increased effort into necessary alliances with communities' internal exchanges on the realities of life and forms of structural discrimination that only some of us experience. Resource for building communities of solidarity must be built up and demanded. So this would be something that would contribute to the internal environment and how people grow up. So like promoting the support for diversity, which in certain parts of Germany lacks because Germany is still majority white because it's Europe. Intersectional discrimination, Black people with impairments, disability, trans, inter, and non-binary people, Black people with two African. So addressing the intersectional discrimination in terms of how much other factors such as disabilities, LGBT, or having multiple Black parents is a huge negative effect from the public or from the racist public, if you want to call it like that. Such vulnerabilities must be countered with resources, spaces, and community care centers. So these aspects need to be more addressed into the communities because they're very significant. Okay, I believe this is the last one. Good. 1 second. Okay. So professionalization, and again, it's politics and administration and the community aspect of it. So there's more on the political side rather than the community side because I think before something comes to community, there needs to be a political incentive to change something. So there are 5 aspects that were mentioned in the paper. One of them is the General Equal Treatment Act. Implement reform proposals by the Federal Anti-Discrimination Agency, including the right to sue by association, extension of the time limits for filing suit and extension for the AGG to public law. So allowing people to get sued if someone gets discriminated. General Equal Treatment Act in the education sector and explicitly address anti-Black racism as a form of discrimination, establish the right of association to sue and, among others, independent complaints in the education sector. So if you look at the data, which I don't have it in this paper exactly, but there's since a lot of the respondents are younger or are German, they all have recently gone through the German education. And a significant amount of proportion of them, I believe it was something along the lines of 30%, mentioned that discriminations in schools was significantly like impeding their way of learning. And I believe it was another 30% said that it was a high issue, and another 20% said it was a medium level issue. So 90% of them, 95% of the respondents mentioned that racism in education is an issue. And from personal experience, it is a pretty big issue because I would say in Germany, like the if you want to call it vulgar language or racist language, it hasn't reached Germany really yet. So what I mean by that is people don't have a filter, like people of non-color don't have a filter. So people would do use the N-word pretty often in a way that actually another interesting thing that became recently very common is that Germans created, so this is a little bit off topic, but it kind of relates to this. Germans have a term so that they use. It's a German term, but it became really popular recently. It's a DIGGA, okay? It comes from the old word dicke, which stands thick, right? And back in the days, it was used to say, "Hey, big man," right? It's like a greeting thing, big man. But recently, it became extremely popular by Turks. So Turks who are somewhat brown, they came in and instead of saying dicke, they just made it sound very like the N-word. Instead of just putting the N initially, just put the D in, right, at the start. And now it's okay, right? So again, but even though that's like technically not racist or anything, right? It's still a little bit iffy. But a lot of people, just literally from personal experience, still use the N-word on a daily basis, and nobody will tell them anything. White people or Black people, nobody will tell them anything because it's still relatively accepted to use it in like internal situations, right? No, nothing will happen to you. It's still used very often in school specifically, because I went to like 4 years of school German. Professionalization. Public institutions have a responsibility to engage in the process of professionalization. Critical of racism includes, but not limited to, training to current stuff. So the aspect of introducing the education part that relates to racism, discrimination into work, into when you receive your job, that being a factor, right? The police, similar to this, is that legislators must lead legal provisions that contain authorizations according to which the police can carry out checks on people without concrete, causing crime-ridden or dangerous places. Independent police commissioners must be established at federal and state level. So, so this is like an incentive or action to put more effort by the police to have enough evidence for some suspect before they can continue with their process. Is because, as we saw before, 45.7% of respondents fear the police, which is, I mean, that should not be the case, right? And this aspect being more practiced will cause the police to be significantly more careful before approaching someone, because the thing is, even if nothing happens to you, but you're just approached and you everything's fine with you, the idea of someone approaching you and asking you for information while you were just going off on a few days can not only has an effect on your time wasting, like not time wasted, but also like on a more of like a mental state that you're getting questioned. So now you're stuck on that mindset, but that takes you away from school, from work. It's not a good ideology to maintain that, oh, somebody might say something or someone might do something to me. So I have to like stay always like scared a little bit. And the last aspect of the politics is the promotion of young talent. So in order to ensure the representation of Black people, the Black Talent Promotion Organization must be recognized, which promotes young talent in those areas. Again, there's a pretty big population of people 20 to 39 and 20 and lower. So in high school and middle school and stuff like that. So promotion of that talent will allow those people to potentially get more resources and potentially become more successful, like cascading down and up. Cascading up into the future generations, allowing people to be more proud to be African Black and potentially see like role models. So this would be the ideology behind this. Black African, so the community aspect of this, community-focused professionalization, develop training and education that complement state offers with Black perspectives, international exchange in which Black ethos of community is promoted. The professionalization includes social work, political education, etc., and anti-discrimination counseling, fundraising, finance. So this is more of like a complement to what was stated before here into the community aspects of it, something that communities should pay attention to, and frameworks for engagement, voluntary structures in which Black people engage with the community should be more supported for those to become sustainable. So if you want change, you want willingness of people, not only the government, also the people to change. Such can be done through compensation for expenses or the expansion of already practiced care for care concepts, example, community kids care for organized support. So, like creating, so these fundraisers that I mentioned that allow people, let's say, Black communities to help each other and get some compensation for it. I'm pretty sure in the US, we do also have those. I'm not sure about when it comes to Black communities, but I know this for a fact when it comes to disabilities, is that if you care for someone with a disability in certain states, you get compensated for it just because you are helping the community, right? So even if you don't have to, you will get paid by the state to look for someone who needs some support. And this is like an incentive of, if you're caring for someone who is in like financial problems or family problems, if you want to promote their future, their current process, there should be some compensation for it to promote it. And yeah, that's it. I'll stop sharing. Do we have any questions?
Yeah, thank you so much, Mehdi, for reviewing that for us.
Yeah, of course.
Yes.
Do we have any questions, or we'll continue with the meeting?
Yes, questions, please, anybody.
You can ask questions about the thing or about Germany in general, because I have a pretty good understanding of the education system, the environment, how people like live, how they speak. Because technically, I know some things because I'm pretty white looking, so I hang out with people who are white. So if they tell me something, I can hear them. Like sometimes, like I would say racism in Germany is more, if you want to call it low key. It's not really in the US. A lot of the times you would hear people scream out racist terms, right? But I would say in Germany it's a little different. It's not as publicized. It's more like internal circles that like lingers between. And if you're like Black, I guess you wouldn't experience it. You wouldn't like hear the internal talks because they're about you. But if you are, I don't know, look like me, you would, right? So that like kind of like interplay is interesting. So if you have any questions, you can ask, because this is kind of like you would assume Germany is pretty much the biggest economy in Europe. It's the biggest by total GDP, per capita GDP. It's the most advanced European nation. So you would assume they would have some, and it's pretty liberal technically, and it's considered very liberal. It's social democracy. So, but that's still like the nationalistic conservative ideologies still remain in the German communities, especially the older ones.
Yeah, Dana has a question for you.
Oh yeah.
You mentioned something briefly about compensation and restitution, I think, after the Holocaust for Black Germans. So I'm wondering, I don't actually know what has been done on that, and I'm interested.
Not for Black Germans, for Jewish Germans.
Okay.
So the things that I said are potential future actions to be taken, but the things that I was mentioning was the Jewish reparations, because Nazis killed what, 9 million Jews, I believe, during the Holocaust, roughly, right? So this, they were internationally forced to pay them. They could, if you look at the history, they did not want to pay any reparations, right? But they were kind of internationally forced by the United Nations to pay the reparations for the 9 million lives they killed. For the Jewish, I think in total they killed 20 million, 25 million people, and 9 to 11 million were Jewish. So they were forced to do it. But the Black thing is future actions. It's not there yet.
So, Mehdi, one question I have is, based on what you saw, how do you think that our research could help to move this work forward?
How our research can, I think, the thing is, Germany, especially the younger population, is very influenced by the Western world, specifically the US. They're very influenced. So if you look, so a lot of when you talk in German schools, a lot of the times they speak German and they speak a little English and then they go back to German, because they listen to English music, they watch English movies, they listen to English celebrities, because Germany is integrated into the US. So I think, especially with the protests, the BLM protests, there was a significant amount of social media uprising from the younger population in Germany. Even like it didn't happen in Germany, there were protests in Germany, there were protests in the UK, in France, right? So I think when it comes to research, it's kind of like the core. From the research, you can grow the tree. So if you continuously pull research that gets viewed by the US and gets promoted by the US, and like people that are listened to, like, and whether it's politicians, celebrities, whatever, it will transition to Germany. If something is, because Germany is integrated in the US agriculture environment. So because I think it would be difficult to directly intervene in German culture, because Germans are by innate personality are extremely conventional and conservative. When it comes to schooling, when it comes to medicine, when it comes to accounting, they're very traditional. It's really difficult to change Germans that have lived there for a long period of time, or like the German structure. Personally, I think the way you can change it is by influencing the younger population to change, and you can do that by continuously liberating the way we perceive race and ethnicity in the US, because US is literally the beacon of the world. It is.
Interesting. So you feel that even work we do here will have an influence there just because we did it here?
Yes, it does. I think it needs to be continuously done and pushed into places where it's going to be seen. Because you can pop out papers, right? But at the end of the day, you need technically you just need one that will blow up, right? Continuous progression is good, but it's going to take a long time. You need headliners type of way, such as like BLM was a huge headliner. It stopped the world almost, right? It was police aggression. They murdered a person because he was Black. They used aggression, right? That kind of like put the world into the social media. Everyone was posting about it. So it had a huge influence. So I would say that continuously producing research that is eye-catching is important, because I think nowadays the currency of 2021, 2022 of our generation is attention. That's the currency. If you can grab someone's attention, that's money, that's a value, it's a very strong value. And because if you can grab someone's attention, it can spread. So I think the goal of this lab could be to continue to produce research that is eye-catching.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions for Mehdi? All right, well, thank you. Thank you very much. I'm going to stop recording now.